Ready to go here. I just want to make sure I could hit record while I was still admitting some people this evening. So welcome everybody. I'm Natalie Rupert. I'm the Manager of Workforce Development for the Kenton County Public Library System. We're very excited to have you all with us this evening. Before we get started, just a couple housekeeping details. This meeting is being recorded tonight. If you're familiar with Zoom, you'll know that Zoom records the person speaking in the meeting. After the meeting tomorrow, you'll be able to find it posted on our Job Search Central site. And we're also going to post it on the Kenton County Public Library's YouTube channel. So you can catch it out there. Matt is a very interesting guy to hear, so you want to keep track of what he has to say this evening. Also, we ask that you please keep yourself muted during the course of Matt's presentation so we don't get any static in the background. You're welcome to keep your videos on and be a presence. Matt likes things to be a little bit interactive. So if you have a question, please feel free that you can post it in the chat and I will try to bring them up to Matt and call on you individually. For those of you that don't know this, the Kenton County Public Library has been ranked the #1 library system in the state of Kentucky since 2013. We're very proud of our reputation and we always want to bring you really great speakers to help you in your job search, and Matt is one of those top people. I've known Matt. It's kind of funny. About, I guess it was 3 years ago, I heard about Matt's book, Nailed It, 10 Keys to Crushing the Interview. And I read it and I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I ordered multiple copies for all 3 of our physical libraries, never realizing that Matt was a local guy that actually lived in Cincinnati. When we finally figured that out about 2 years ago, we had the good fortune of having Matt come speak to us in the actual building. Fabulous presentation. So we try to invite him back twice a year now, and he does show up. But Matt is a business consultant, an executive coach. He's helped all kinds of companies motivate their staff. He's helped all kinds of individuals, both people, athletes, help move forward in their lives. And his book, Nailed It, has helped lots and lots of people find jobs. The one thing about Matt is I found he's the lucky charm for many people who have been interviewing and been, you know, the maid of honor, but not the bride, if you will, never just quite got the offer. And we're getting very frustrated with their interview skills. Then they read Matt's book and all of a sudden magic happens. So we've had multiple people come through the library's programs, particularly the Northern Kentucky Accountability Group, with great success. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the show over to Matt. Thanks, Matt.
Well, Natalie, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for that introduction. And I can't tell you how excited I am about this evening. And I got to tell you, many of you may have heard that I travel around the globe. I was recently in Singapore and Malaysia and Vietnam and Israel. I was in Jamaica, and I got to tell you, I work with a lot of people in this industry, and there's not one that I know in this industry better than Natalie at what she does. I got to tell you, she's amazing. And with that, if you would, please show some love to Natalie in the chat. Feel free to applaud, but I will tell you, send a message in chat if you would. Just let her know the difference, the impact that she is having. I've had the good fortune of, again, working with a lot of different organizations and leaders across the globe, and there's not one that comes close to doing what Natalie does in her industry. And so well done. I can't thank you enough. I feel both blessed and challenged tonight. I feel blessed to be able to give back tonight and share with you some advanced interviewing strategies Natalie, if it's okay with you, I might even sneak in a few resume strategies as well. I have a lot of people who
Of
tell me,
course, always.
yeah, okay. And so I might even throw a few of those in. So I'm blessed to be here. I'm also challenged. I'm challenged because the typical workshop that I provide around this topic, advanced interviewing strategies that really help people nail the interview, is 2 days. Natalie said, that sounds wonderful. You got about an hour and a half and then another 30 minutes of Q&A. Go. And so I want you to know, I'm going to blitz a few topics tonight with you. I'm going to take a moment tonight and just share with you some of the things that we've discovered around advanced interviewing strategies. And I want you to know how much I honor the folks that are on the call right now. It's Monday night at 6:30 p.m. and I got to tell you, something tells me you and I are kindred spirits. Something tells me you're on this call because you're a lifelong learner, like so many that are on this call. And so I honor you for that. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. And I will do everything I can to share with you some strategies that we have discovered can really have an impact. And I want you to know that tonight also, when I share some of these strategies, I'm going to act more like a reporter. I'm going to be a reporter tonight and just report out to you what we discovered. There's some of the up-to-date advanced strategies that can really cause people to perform at their next level, to really perform at their peak. Now, I want you to know that some of you are working with coaches. Continue to work with the guidance of your coaches. I may share some strategies that are unique or different, that perhaps even some of the coaches may not have quite heard yet, and that's okay. I want you to know if a coach is guiding you, continue to work with them. Natalie and her team are phenomenal. They're so incredibly talented, so make sure you do that. I'm just going to share with you a few things that we discovered in our strategy when I wrote the book, Nailed It, 10 Keys to Crushing the Interview. We really wanted to go out and make sure that some of the organizations that I'm working with, like GE and Kroger and Fifth Third and many large Fortune 50 organizations, as well as mom and pop organizations, as well as small 50 to 2,000 member organizations, these were for-profit, non-profit, these were all across the industry. We wanted to know what was really going on in the interview process. What was causing people to say this? Rather than, yeah, they did okay. We wanted to know what caused an organization, a group of employees who were interviewing you, employers who were saying we're looking for the best, to say this. Luke walked in and he nailed it. I mean, nailed it. We're crazy if we don't hire him. That say, Cassandra, there is no one that even came close. She was so good, she nailed the interview. We have to hire her. And we wanted to know what caused that. So we're going to talk a little bit about those components tonight. But the truth is, a lot of people have a lot of fear and trepidation around interviews. They feel like it's a test. And so as a matter of fact, tonight I'm going to share a couple different things with you. I might share a video recording. In fact, I have live videos. I have thousands of videos of live interview recordings. And I may share a couple of them with you tonight. I may share a fun video clip. I may share an activity with you. And I want you to know we're going to go through several of these together. And I'd like to start off, I'm going to share my screen. And I'd like to start off by sharing this particular video, an example of how so many people often feel their interviews will go. And so if you're on your computer, you'll want to turn up the volume. Here is how most people feel their next interview is going to go. It's the feared interview.
Well, Greg, your CV is certainly impressive, but I'm afraid you're not quite right for us.
Okay, fine. Thank you for considering me for the job.
And that's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. We need a cool-headed man like you on our team, Greg. That was a test, and you've passed. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. So I've got the job.
No, of course not. I don't employ gullible fools. That was the test, Greg, and you failed. Goodbye.
Oh, all right then.
Greg, that's the nonchalant attitude we've been looking for. You passed the test.
Have I really?
No, that was the test. You questioned me. No one questions me. No, he wouldn't mind. Greg, you passed the walking away test. Come on, sit down.
So, I've got the job?
Yes, you have.
Definitely?
Definitely. Oh, Greg, welcome to the company. Oh, sorry about all that test palaver. Can get a bit confusing, can't it?
Well, a bit, yes.
No, you're too easily confused. You failed the test. Oh, and I had such high hopes for you.
This is ridiculous.
Congratulations. This is ridiculous. You passed the test.
Oh, for God's sake. Keep your job.
Greg, this is the real final test. If you would hear me in your mind, then you will pass. Really. Come back in, Greg. Come back in. No! You failed the test!
All right, so I got to tell you, we have so many people who feel like they're in this test that is taking place when it comes to their interview. And am I going to pass it? Am I not? How do I make sure I'm ready? Do I have everything all set? Am I organized, etc.? And I want you to know, today I want to share with you some of the things that really cause breakthrough, that allow people to truly become the best version of who they are when it comes to their interview process. So I'm going to share several things with you. And the first thing I want to share with you is I've had several people say, okay, Matt, listen, you're going to talk about advanced interviewing tips, but I've sent 30 resumes and I haven't heard from a single soul. Like, what's going on? Is it because they're not hiring? Now, we'll tell you this. I got to tell you, I'm always amazed at what takes place in interviews. And we sometimes give ourselves what we call psychological relief. Let me give you an example of what psychological relief sounds like. 30 employers said they need someone to apply for a job. I applied, no one called me. You know what that means, don't you? I say, what? They go, I guess no one's hiring right now. I go, wait a minute, do you hear what you're saying? They're obviously have a job posting. They're looking for someone. What you're saying is I sent 30 resumes and no one's calling me. And so I want you to know that I want to share a couple of advanced strategies with you. I would be remiss not to share a couple, and I'm going to blitz up. We normally share a lot of different ones with you. There are several in the book. I'm going to just share a couple of high-level ones with you now. The first one is this. We have a lot of people, now again, follow what you hear. You've got to follow your gut. I want you to know, though, that we went out and interviewed interviewers. We went out and interviewed employers. We wanted to know what works on a resume, what doesn't. Is there anything that people do on a resume that they found of less value in 2020 than it might have been even 3, 5, 10 years ago? And one of those surprised us. And that is this. We have a lot of people who will put at the top of their resume an objective statement. Now, we wanted to know, Natalie, it was interesting because recently, if you recall, I was there locally, and we may have a couple folks on tonight that are actually recruiters. But when I was there last, we had a couple people who were recruiters, and they were laughing, if you recall, because when I would say something, they were like, gosh, it's so true. It's so true, but not everyone knows it. And so, for example, on the resume, a lot of people will share what they call an objective statement. I'm going to share my screen again with you just to give you a sample of what this could look like so that you know what it can be, what it can look like. But it's not uncommon that we'll have people that will share something like this, right? And it will have an objective statement at the top. When I was there with the recruiters, I was asking people, how many resumes do people receive? Especially if they're any sizable organization. If they are, for example, Kroger, and they have a management position open, how many resumes are they receiving? I had people say in the audience, I don't know, 100, maybe 150. The response is often over 1,000 resumes for one job opening. Now, why do I tell you that? They're receiving thousands of resumes, And the question we had was, how long do they spend on average, a professional interviewer, HR person, someone focused on the recruiting part of the job, whether they work for the company or they're an external recruiter. And what we discovered was this: the average length of time that they spent actually reading resumes, first of all, it goes through a filter. How many know it goes through a filter? That there may be resumes they don't even read. And when they finally receive the top 30 or 50, we wanted to know how long they spend on it. And Natalie, I don't know if you recall this. Do you remember how long they said they spent on it?
6 to 10 seconds.
That's exactly right. 6 to 10. Wait a minute. Did you just say 6 to 10 seconds?
Mm-hmm.
I said 10 seconds. 10 seconds. And so I want you to know this statement at the very top. If I started to read it, you discover something very quickly. In fact, can I get somebody who'd be willing to do it as just for fun? Can I get somebody that would be willing to unmute and read this out loud for me? And the reason why I say that is I'm going to time it.
Mm-hmm.
Would anybody be willing to read it for me? Just this collaborative assistant project manager.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Collaborative assistant project manager with experience working closely with international project managers and other team members to provide support on multiple projects. Adept at tracking and monitoring project schedules and budgets, updating and reviewing financial status reports, and ensuring deliverable deadlines are met. Excellent verbal and written communication skills, able to deliver top-notch client interface while working effectively with members in a small team environment.
All right. If you could see, can you read, by the way, thank you for that, Nancy. Can you read
Sure.
my timer? What's it say?
25 seconds.
25 seconds. The average recruiter will spend about 10 seconds per resume. The reason why I'm telling you this, good or bad, don't get me wrong, you'll find folks in some organizations go, oh yeah, I read them all the time. But the truth is they told us, Matt, I gotta be honest with you, first of all, we don't read them because they're paragraphs. The second thing is they said this: if they put an objective statement that sounds like this, I'd like to work for a great company and leverage the skill set that I have gained. They said you only have to be a recruiter for about 3 days till you realize something. How many objective statements do you have to read until you realize they're all the same? They start to sound the same. And they said because of that, it ends up becoming very low value, very little value. So I want you to know, we said then we want to know what creates tremendous value. We want to know, is there something you can do on your resume that quickly will cause your resume, if you have sent 30 resumes and haven't heard from someone, would you like to increase the viewing that people have of your resume, employers actually seeing your resume, by 30% or more? We've had some as much as 70 to 80% greater viewing. We're like, come on, Matt, those numbers don't exist. They do. And it's really simple. It's really simple. I'll show you. I just mentioned to you that resumes nowadays, almost all of them are sent electronically, digitally, which means they're pushed through a filter. How many know that? Right? How many know resumes are pushed through a filter? Okay, great. Wouldn't it be nice to know what the filter was? I wonder what the filter is. Is there a way that I can win this filter game? And what we discovered is this: almost without exception, we wanted to know when they put a job description online, put a resume, an opportunity online. We wanted to know, where did they get the words to build the filter that they use online? Survey says it came from the job description. Now that's not rocket science. But I want you to know, they simply took the job description and they pull out 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 key words and they use it in their filter. And we went, okay, if people aren't reading, if recruiters and employers aren't often reading this objective statement at the top, is there something they can read that will cause them to more quickly select you? And we discovered that if that same person, rather than objective statement, put what we called key qualifications. These were 6 to 9 words listed at the top of the job description in bullet format, not in sentence format, in bullet format. And this is the only section. We told folks, if you really want to nail your next interview, first you got to get in the door before you interview. How can you get more doors open to you? We discovered this. You have to customize every resume. Now, right now, I usually hear a big moan. Like, oh no, you're kidding me. Wait a minute. Most people spend hours building the resume. I got good news for you. You have to customize every resume, but you only have to customize the key qualifications, 9 bullets at the top. That's it. Wait, I'm sending 20 resumes? Yeah. I've got to customize all 20? The answer is yes, but all you have to do is change these 9 words at the top. Well, how am I going to know what to change them to? And the answer is this. When I'm working with folks, I love working with folks who say, Matt, I've been interviewing for 3 or 6 months. I can't seem to get many doors open. I'll have them pull up 3 job descriptions. That's it. First job description, I'll have them highlight in yellow. And you can guess what I'm having them highlight from the job description they're applying for, which are simply 6 to 9 to 12 key words. And then the next part is really important. Make sure your ears open when you hear this. Always, always tell the truth. Never, ever, ever put something on your resume that is not accurate. However, we often have folks that have 10 or 12 things highlighted on a job description, and I go, good, which ones apply to you? And they go, shucks, only 6. I go, then just put 6. 6 of the 12, put those 6 at the top, or those 8, or those 10. Bullet points, key qualifications at the top. Now, by the way, I did have a couple folks who said, but Matt, I spent hours building my objective statement that no one will read, wink, wink. I said, no worries, put that below the key qualification. You insist on having it. But why am I telling you this? 2 reasons. One, it quickly pushes through the filter, beep, right? So when you hear beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, and your resume goes through, it notices these 12 keywords. Now, I will tell you, if they say, like you'll see on this resume, if they say customer service relations, and you already have customer service, should I just, hey, it says customer service. That's close enough, isn't it? We found the keywords were critical. For example, notice the second bullet down says meeting aggressive deadlines. We saw on a particular resume where on the job description where it specifically called this out. We went, for example, the third bullet over says physician relations. They said, I already have doctor relations on here. Shouldn't I just leave doctor relations? Survey says, no, shift it, change it to physician relations. Now, why am I telling you this? For those who I work with, they will tell you this. They did this 2 or 3 times, and after that, the average length of time it took them to update these key qualifications was less than 5 minutes. 5 minutes to increase their likelihood by 30, 50, sometimes 70% that someone's going to physically get their resume, that it'll make it through the filter. And we've seen some incredibly talented people, their resumes weren't even pushing through the filter. Oh my goodness. So this is simple. Natalie, I'm only going to share that one for a few seconds, but for those who needed to hear that, I want you to know, super simple, powerful way. Always tell the truth. If you highlight 15, should I put all 15? Don't need to, but only put the ones that are true about you. 9 of 15 are often far more than the next best qualified candidate who they'll never look at their resume because it didn't get it through the filter. Didn't push through the filter. So, all right, that one's for free. And so that's one when it comes to the resume. It's one of the biggest tips, and one of the things Natalie's probably aware of that I'm passionate about is I love working with people who have been interviewing for a little while. They've starting to feel a little discouraged. I'm not sure any of this works. Maybe they just don't like my skill set or my background. And then watching them flourish and grow with just a couple of shifts and changes. And this is one of them. Let me give a second one real quick on resumes. Is this one helpful, by the way? Does this help? Let me give a second one, super simple, and it's this. There is a secret to the resume. And this one of the top secrets to a resume comes in the form of how you articulate what you've done. And what we've known as this. Key to a resume is numbers, stats, data, dollars, as many as you can possibly place in your resume. And if you can't recall a number, take your best guess and subtract 20%. No, you mean add 20%, Matt. No, subtract it. And I'll tell you why. Like if you say, I work with several leaders. How many several? Is that 3 or 30? If you go, I'm not sure, there was a bunch. And I'll say, how many? 12? And they went, maybe 12. I go, was there for sure more than 8? And they went, oh, definitely more than 8. And I tell them, then put 8. Why? You'll speak it more confidently in your interview. When people aren't sure and they go, I think it was like 12, but I'm going to say 15. Never do that. First of all, tell the truth. Second of all, we found that when they said 15, non-verbally it came across like this. Yeah, I worked with a lot of people, it was like, it's like 15. And their nonverbals were not nearly as strong as when they said, I worked with over 8 leaders. So it doesn't matter the number. Let me give you a real example. I do these in my public workshops, which, by the way, Natalie, I know I'd mentioned to you that we're going to be doing. We're going to provide a special for anyone who's on this call right now. If they want to join that later, it's normally $99. We do it for $49 for the folks that are on this call right now. It's just something we want to do for the attendees. Why am I telling you? For those who want like more of them. When I do this in a public workshop, I show the example of this resume. Candidate B at the top. This is real information. By the way, this is a live candidate. Candidate B at the top says organizing and analyzing data with Epic medical records. They both, these candidates worked in hospital settings. Candidate A said, I analyzed data for 6,000 Epic medical records per month and corrected errors that saved the organization over $30,000 in 8 months. Candidate B at the top, having similar experience, said, I conducted external environmental analysis to determine primary care physician referral patterns to CCHMC. Some of you are like, hey, that's Children's Hospital. That's right. CCHMC emergency services. Not bad. The only problem is you'll notice this top resume starts reading more like a job description. And you'll notice candidate A at the bottom said, conducted 7 external environmental analyses, resulting in an accepted solution, saving the organization 30 hours of work per week and reducing costs by over $700,000 annually. These are real numbers. Now, let me ask you this. Which candidate do you want to interview? And some of you on this Zoom right now, you're not only interviewing, you've interviewed others. You've experienced this before. And my question is, which candidate would you like to interview? Candidate B or candidate A? Survey says, you tell me which one you think they all said. You can put it in chat if you want. Exactly. They all said, you know what, I want to interview candidate A. And they're always shocked when I reveal that this was actually the same candidate. This is Patrick B, candidate B before, and Patrick, candidate A after. This is the same person I was working with. And I just simply said, give me numbers. Can you think of any? Do you remember how many? And he'd go, we analyzed a lot of Epic medical records. I go, how many? Was it 1 million? He goes, no, not 1 million. I go, was it more than 500? He goes, oh, far more than that. And so he looked back and researched and it was over 6,000 per month. Why am I telling you this? We found over and over when resumes had numbers packed. It didn't matter, by the way, if the number was 1 or 1 million. When it said, I worked with leaders, you will see me with any candidate I work with, I'm always circling all over the resume. What number here? You know, I had one person say this. You ready for this? This is a real candidate from Xavier University who gave me the permission to share this stat with you. She said this, I wrote grants for a nonprofit organization. Wrote grants for a nonprofit organization. That was her bullet. I asked her, how many grants did you write? How many were approved? You ready for this? Her next resume said, I wrote 4 grants, 75% of which were approved, upwards of over $940,000. Now, I don't know about you, who you'd like to interview, but suddenly the people who before said, no, her resume never went through the filter. Once it got through the filter, they read these numbers and said, we're crazy if we don't interview her. She was amazing, but she couldn't figure out why people weren't interviewing her. Numbers, stats, and data. All right, that's it for the resumes. That's enough for now. I'm going to jump on. You guys jump into the interview. You guys okay with that? Is this helpful so far, Natalie?
Yes.
Okay.
We talk about getting through applicant tracking systems a lot and using job scan a lot. But we also think it's very important, rather than submitting just your duties and responsibilities like Patrick before, that talking about your accomplishments like Patrick after makes huge difference in how you're perceived. So
well said. In fact, what Natalie just said there is about $5,000 worth of consulting advice. She says no applause, just throw cash. But here's what I want you to know. We found that employers care a little less about what you did and a lot more about what you accomplished. What did you accomplish through your work? They're not looking for a job description on your resume. They want to know, what did you get done? What did you accomplish? And when you do, the resumes before and after, it's not even close. Anywhere you can put a number. It didn't matter if it said I worked with 1 leader and 2 people to save 1%. It did not matter. Why? Because your biggest competitors have none of these numbers on their resume. So it reads more like a job description. It's profound. And sidebar, it empowers you with information to share in your interview. So you've now done your homework. And in an interview, when you share numbers, stats, dollars, there's an automatic assumption made, fair or unfair, and it's accurate, which is this: wow, she's really done her homework. She really knows her stuff. He's really got his act together. Exactly, you already did before, but now they can hear it and see it. And that's what we want. All right, so that's it for the resume. Let me jump more into what some of you are really interested in, which is the interviewing process. And by the way, Natalie, if you see any chats that you feel would be helpful, always feel free to incorporate those as well.
While you're making the transition, Matt, there was one quick question. I think Ken Wooker asked, you had dashes on the one resume in front of the top skills. Did you do that for a specific reason or just as a sample?
Nope, it just happened to be a sample. Can it be a bullet? Yes. Can it be a dash? Yes. Can I just put a full paragraph? No, we don't encourage that. But I will tell you, the style, it is hysterical. We have run test runs, by the way. This is just a sidebar for the folks on here. We wanted to test certain elements. For example, I've had some people work so much on the look of their resume, but the content was missing. The keys were missing. It looked beautiful. In fact, I had one of the top lawyers in Pittsburgh contacted me recently and said, Matt, can we fly you here to Pittsburgh? We're working with our daughter, who, are you ready? Some of you know what I'm talking about when I say this. She had over $300,000 in student loans. $300,000, and could not land a $50,000 job to save her life. Good or bad, right or wrong. Some of you know what I'm talking about. And for me, I get passionate about it because I'm like, wait a minute, you worked too hard in your career not, to miss some of these golden opportunities. Why do I tell you that? Because when I met with her, her resume was gorgeous. It looked beautiful. There was only one problem. No one saw it. She saw it, but no one else did. And she kept saying, I asked her at one point, this is after many months, and I said, how many resumes have you actually sent? She sent over 55 resumes. I said, how many have contacted you? One contacted her and then did not interview her. Now, I said, when I started to mention some things we could do to update her resume, she went, but I've worked so hard on it. I want you to hear that. You would be shocked how many people get married to the resume and then they're like, I don't want to change it because I've worked so hard. And then they can't figure out why people aren't contacting them. And I don't want that for you. What I want for you is to get in the door so you can nail your interview as well. Now, these are just a couple. There are many others, but I wanted to share those with you. All right, let's jump into this next piece, and which is You know, when it comes to the interview, do you think communication skills might be important? Do you think having good communication skills might be critical when you walk into an interview? And most people go, yeah. So my question for you is this: if that's true, if good communication is important, what % of your overall communication skills are the words you actually speak? What %? Now, I have some folks say, man, I don't know, 20, 30%. I've even had some say as high as 50%. But let me share with you what we discovered. And I'm going to share my screen with you again. And I want to share with you what we learned about this whole process. And the answer was this: 7%. Wait, what? Yeah, of your overall communication, the words you actually speak is only 7%. So when you head into your next interview, I want you to know only 7% of your overall communication are your words. Then what in the world is everything else? This is an open book test, by the way, right? And what is everything else? 55% is your nonverbal communication, how you carry yourself, right? How you share what you share, your facial expressions, etc. And 38% is your vocal variety. Vocal variety, how you use your voice. All of these things, nonverbal communication and vocal variety, equals 93% of your communication. Only 7% is your words. And why do I tell you that? Because we have so many candidates who get very nervous before an interview. They get very concerned. And through all our research, the one thing we wanted to know is, what's going on? Why are you nervous? And almost without exception, they'd say this: I'm just trying to figure out what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
What am I gonna say? And I want you to know, we want, oh my goodness, this is over and over and over and over again. And what they didn't know is what they say is not nearly as important as how they say it. Let me say that again. We found in the interview, without exception, what they actually said wasn't anywhere near as important as how they said it. But I got good news for you. We've had a lot of people say this. Very good, big-hearted people will tell you this. I was in a workshop recently, and I asked people this: how many hate the process of having to sell yourself in an interview? Have you ever been there? I have too. I ask people all the time, do you get worried about selling yourself? And they go, yes, without exception, every hand went up in the room. We said, what's going on? And they just said, man, I just get so nervous and I don't like selling myself. And they're almost always shocked when I go, good, thank goodness. Then stop selling yourself. And they go, huh? I go, yeah, stop selling yourself. Don't do that. And they go, well, I don't understand what you mean. I've been told by everyone on the planet, you got to go in there and be confident. Go in there and just sell yourself. And I'm like, good-hearted people really mean well when they tell you that. But they're missing one small ingredient. And if you're on this Zoom session right now, and you would like you or the people you work with or your friends or your family or your neighbors that you're trying to help, if you're a coach, if you like the people you work with, if you would like your nervousness to be cut in half, literally 50% right now. If that's true for you, give me a reaction on that one. If you know how to do the reactions, it looks something like this, right? You know, is that true for you? I mean, would you like to see your nervousness be cut in half instantly? And I want you to know the way to do that. The way to do that is to know this: your next interview is not about you. Your next interview is not about you. We have people go in and they're nervous, and we want to know, what are you nervous about? And they said, what am I going to say? I said, okay, what else? And they go, what if this jacket isn't the right one? What if I'm not dressed right? Is my hair out of place? What if I botch it? What if I say something wrong? What if I'm speaking and I don't know what to say? What if I go quiet? I want you to know all of these are natural and normal. But I want you to notice one thing. Who are they all about? That's right. They're about them. And if you'd like your nervousness to be cut in half, you need to understand that your next interview is not about you. You have employers who are staying up at night because they need to fill this position. They've actually interviewed 4 people and it's not looking good. In fact, when they don't fill this position because they can't find the right candidate, a good candidate for the role, guess who's going to do that work? That's right, them or their team. And their team's getting upset and they're worried and they're nervous and they're like, we can't keep doing this work. You need to hire someone for this job. They actually are carrying a weight around on their shoulders. And if you'd like your nervousness to cut in half, you need to understand that you need to take your focus from here and put it there. It needs to go from here and put it toward them. They have a heavy weight on their shoulders. And the more you go in with the spirit of understanding that your role is actually to remove the weight they have on their shoulders, your nervousness suddenly will be cut in half. Will it go away all the way, Matt? No, never does. Never does. We still have butterflies. We just teach them how to fly in formation. Right? You still have butterflies. We're just teaching them how to fly in formation. And I want you to know, in fact, I'm going to share with you one of the 10 principles from the book, but I'm going to go out of order. And I'm doing this because in honor, actually, of my son, who is a senior in college, has read my book. I'm grateful for this. I am. I'm so blessed. But he's had several major interviews, big interviews. For example, he's in Belmont University in Nashville, and they were hiring students, but they had never hired a freshman before. And when he was a freshman, he had read the book. He really wanted to work for the Nashville Film Festival. For the first time, they hired a freshman. They said, this guy just nailed it. And I'm grateful for that. I'm so proud of him for that. It was he who told me recently, Dad, you taught me a principle in the book, but I think it's out of order. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, the second principle, and it's what we just shared. He said, I don't think it's the second key. I think it's the overarching theme. And it's this. You have to give, not get. The purpose of the interview is not to get something. Most people go into an interview thinking, I got to get the job. But I want you to know, if you go in there in the spirit of, I'm here to give, I'm here to support, I'm here to take that weight off your shoulders, something happens. I don't have to tell a candidate, go in there and look more confident. They just do. Why? Because they're not there to get a job. They're there to serve. They're there to support. And that sound, I just want your ears to hear that, because it's so crucial that you've got to give, not get. Now I'm going to revisit this one here in a little bit. I'm going to revisit give, not get in a moment, because I want to share with you some advanced strategies. And again, there's a ton of them out there. We have 10 in the book, but I'm going to just share. The first one is give, not get. And I'll revisit that in a second. But I want you to know that there's a lot of basics out there too, and you've heard them too. I don't want to talk about the basics tonight because you've heard them all, a lot of them. What are some of the basics? Look them in the eye. Give them a firm handshake. Do some research. Dress appropriately and professionally, right? You've heard all those. Those are all good things. Do them all. You know what the only problem with them is? That's what everybody does. And most people will work on all the basics and then they go, I went in and I did all of them. And then they can't figure out why they didn't stand out from the crowd. So those things are good, all those basics. Look them in the eye. Make sure, you have good eye contact, and that you're sitting up straight, and that you're aware of your nonverbals, and that you speak with passion, blah, blah, blah. You've heard all these basics, so I'm not going to cover them. You already know them. Do those. But the question is, what causes people to stand out? One of them I'm going to share what we call the bookends of the interview. And I'm going to start with the first one. And it's this, when we did the research on the book, we were looking at the 10 most commonly asked questions. 10 most commonly asked questions. They were things like, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? What's a time you succeeded? How did you do that? What'd you do? Tell me a time when you failed. We had things like, what are your short-term and long-term goals? Do these sound familiar to y'all? We had, why do you want this position? And what would you do if this situation occurred? We even had, Do you have any questions for me? We had tell me about yourself. We had what's the one thing you wish you'd have changed? We had tell me about a weakness that you need to overcome. All of these. These are some of the most commonly asked questions. But we want to know, what was the number one botched interview question? Is there one interview question that was botched more than any? In the seminars, I frequently have people say, oh, I bet I got one. Tell me about your weakness. Oh, that's got to be the number one botched interview question. And they're surprised when I tell them that's close. It's up there on the list, but it's not number one. They go, oh, I know what it is. Tell me a time when you failed. I bet people really bomb that one. I go, it's true. People do bomb that question, but it's not number one. The number one botched interview question, it's so clear. In fact, I was walking down the halls of a major corporation in Cincinnati, one that many of you might recognize. And I was walking down the hall, somebody said, hey, Matt, what are you doing? And I was giving a seminar for their top leaders on this topic. In other words, these were folks who were high potentials, and they were worried about losing them, so they hired me to come in and give them a seminar on how to make sure you interview your next promotion interview. Why? Because people would walk into a promotion interview and not do well. And someone who internally was prepared, could do the job well, didn't get hired, didn't get promoted. And they were shocked. They were like, what happened? Because something happened in the interview. And I was walking down the hall, and one of their national recruiters said, hey, Matt, how's it going? I said, good. I'm going to give this workshop. And they said this, really, what are you teaching them? I said, I'm going to teach them the number one botched interview question. This is a national recruiter, and they laughed, and they said, yeah, we all know that one, don't we? I'm like, oh my gosh, this should be on a billboard somewhere, but most people don't know it. The number one botched interview question is, tell me about yourself. Now, wait a minute. That can't be the number one botched interview question. Where does that come? In the middle of the interview, maybe near the end? Where does that come? That's right, at the very beginning of the interview. In fact, we call it in the book the non-question. Why? Because even interviewers themselves said, we asked them, do you have a guide? For example, ask Macy's or GE or Kroger or, right? Do you have an interview guide? And they go, yeah, we got an interview guide. I go, great. Do you ever ask the question, tell me about yourself? And they go, all the time. I go, great. Show me on your interview guide where that question is. And they all went, huh? I said, where's that question on your interview guide? And they didn't have it. I'm like, why is that? And they go, well, you know, it's just our way of breaking the ice. However, research shows that after they ask their first question, interviewers make their initial determination of whether they're going to hire you or not in 90 seconds or less. Let me say that again. Interviewers will make their initial determination of whether they're going to hire you or someone else, whether they're going to hire you for the job you want most or whether they're going to hire a different candidate. They make that initial determination in 90 seconds or less, and then everything else in the interview just confirms it. And so what's their first question? And we all know. Tell me about yourself. Number one botched interview question? Yes. Why is that? There are a number of reasons. I was with 17 national recruiters recently, and I was asking them, do you ask this question? These are recruiters who do this all day long. They said, yes. And I said, great. Do you have a Post-it note in front of you? I'm only going to give you 10 seconds. I want you to write down in bullet formats on your Post-it notes, what are you looking for when you ask the question, tell me about yourself? Go. Y'all, these are recruiters who do this all day long. And on video, this is what you see. Huh. Now, they could come up with it, but almost without exception, they had to stop and pause. I'm like, wait, you ask this every day. It got better. So they all wrote something because, you know, they're smart people. They can write something. And so I had them go literally down the line. You're not allowed to read anything but what's on your Post-it note. Go. And they went right down the line. You ready? Someone said this. I want to know your hobbies. The next person said, I don't care about your hobbies. I want to know why you want this job. The next person said, I don't care why they want the job. I want to know their character. The next person said, character, schmaracter. I want to know a relevant experience that causes you to be able to be sitting here in front of me. Next person said, what? I don't want that. I want their history. The next recruiter said, history? I got their resume. I don't need their whole history. I've got that in front of me. I'd rather know. And as you can guess, all 17 of them were different, which led us to this question. Then how in the heck are you supposed to win that game? How am I supposed to win that? Tell me about yourself. And most of them weren't even sure what they were looking for. And these were folks who we interview all day long. One person even said, I'll know it when I hear it. But I have no idea what I'm looking for. Which led us to the first key. In fact, I want to show you, we're going to do a quick test. You guys okay with that? We're going to do another time test. And I'm going to share my screen with you, and I want to show you what happens. I'm going to ask you in the chat, when you've heard enough, just type enough, okay? This is a person, we're asking them, very talented individual. Tell me a little bit about yourself. And so I want to give you a chance to hear him as he shares his message. And if you would, once you've heard enough, just in your chat, write the word enough. Ready? So, ready? Tell me about yourself, Patrick.
Well, I'm actually originally from Alabama. My father is a physician, so I did move around a bit when I was younger. Born in Boston, spent a brief period in Ohio, and now down here in Alabama. Then went back to Ohio for graduate school, so I've been able to kind of take in a lot of the countryside, which I really enjoyed. One thing that I've really liked about the privilege of being able to move around. So I decided to get into healthcare because I actually come from a family of pediatricians. My father is a pediatric radiologist. His father was a pediatric radiologist. My mother's father was a pediatric radiologist. So I feel I was destined to be in healthcare, but medicine was not the proper route for me. So I chose something that I felt would more utilize my skill set as far as the management side, interpersonal connections, things of that nature. Those I feel are some of my real strengths. So that's why I decided to do this. It also gives me an opportunity to meet new people, which I love. It gives me an opportunity to feel, satisfied with the idea of really genuinely helping someone. It's not quite the same as working in retail or sales. You're able to have a good feeling when you leave the hospital, knowing that you actually help people that day. So it was a really easy fit for me when I decided that this was the career that I wanted to choose. So I love the outdoors. It's one of my favorite things to do. If I have one weakness, it's that I enjoy too many hobbies. I enjoy, going out skiing in the winter, backpacking, kayaking, fly fishing, you name it, cycling. If there's something to do outside and it's enjoyable, then I've tried it. So that's where my passions really lie. And I love Alabama because it offers me an opportunity to do that. There's a lot of outdoor activities. Birmingham is a metropolitan area, but it's so close to the outdoors, the mountains, everything like that. It just gives me a great opportunity to not only be happy in my career, but also happy in my life outside my career. So I feel like this is a great fit for me. Just the city, the position, and the hospital in whole. It's just really enjoyable.
Okay, so with that, here, by the way, thank you for your comments. Thank you for your comments, because I got to tell you, it was hysterical for me as I'm reading these comments. Lynn's like, ugh, right? And somebody even said, please make it stop. Now, I get it. This is a really talented candidate. However, the question was, how long did that go on? How long do you suppose that went on? Some people go, oh my God, it felt like 5 minutes. I was worried, actually. I don't want to lose you guys, right? It was like, how long did that go on? Yeah, somebody says way too long. You're right. That went on for 2.5 minutes, y'all. The average length of the answer, tell me about yourself, is over 3 minutes long. Most people speak longer than what you just heard. The average person told me, go ahead and stop right around 51 to 52 seconds. 52 seconds. Now, the reason why I'm telling you that is, here's what we know about what happened just now. Patrick did something we call constellation. Well, I grew up in Alabama and I like sports. In fact, in Alabama, we did a lot of sports. In fact, my physician family who did a lot of sports in Alabama, and he just goes all over the board. And most interviewers tell us their eyes start to glaze over. They go, I get lost. I don't even know where you're going. Well, wait, you said, tell me about yourself. In fact, did you know our research even showed that in mock interviews, coaches didn't want to have to tell someone, it didn't play out so well. How do I tell someone, tell me about yourself, you're boring me? They go, wait, what? In fact, how am I supposed to win then? And I want you to know we found a strategy that almost without exception, the interviewers told us over and over and over again, that made so much sense. And we call it this, it's the first key listed in the book, and it's called frame it up. Frame it up. When it comes to tell me about yourself, I have to do what we call frame it up. And I'm going to show you what I mean. It's really simple. We found 3 key elements is all you need. 3 key elements is all you need. We call it a frame up. Now, I always risk doing this, Natalie, because I give an example of a frame up, but please write what I'm about to say down. Customize your frame up. I'm going to give you an example, but the second I do, I always find that people go, well, then I'll just use that. And I go, don't do that. Customize your frame up. We found a good way, especially if it's a strength of yours, a good way to frame up can often be, why don't I tell you about my education? If education is your strong suit, then don't use that. Why don't I tell you about my education? We found a good second one, where appropriate, is a relevant experience. A relevant experience to the job you're interviewing for, not the one you're in now. A relevant experience that applies to the work you're doing now. And we found a good third one often. In fact, we do say this is the only one of the 3. We encourage you to keep it as this, is a key characteristic. A key characteristic. Now, what we found was this. It was best actually framed in a question. It was best framed as a question. So it sounds something like this. So rather than people rambling on, and I will tell you this, we have learned, always, always, always keep it professional, unless they ask for something in addition to what you are going to tell them. Let me give you an example. When we found it was best framed as a question, well, and they usually start off like this. Did you find the parking lot okay? Thanks for coming in. Or in a moment, we're going to talk about Zoom, right? If you're doing a Zoom interview, the bottom line is they almost, without exception, go, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? We've all heard this interview question. We found it was best framed in a question. It sounds like this. Absolutely. Susan, why don't I tell you a little bit about my education, a relevant experience to this job, and a key characteristic. How's that sound to you? Did you know that over 95% of all interviewers said, that sounds great? You know why it sounded so great to over 95% of interviewers? Because they don't even know what they're looking for. They don't even know what they're looking for. So when you frame it up, it sounds so confident. It sounds so clear. Now I know where you're heading. And you know what the next key is? Stick to your frame. Stick to it. Stay with it. Don't go off course. Why don't I tell you a little bit about my education, a relevant experience, and a key characteristic? How's that sound to you? Now we ask it, how does that sound to you? Why? 5% of the interviewers said, that sounds good. Can you also include? And they just added something else. Can you also include a little bit about your hobbies? And we always tell you, add that in right before key characteristic. Like if they add one, just add it right before your key characteristic. Now, how long do you suppose this should be? We found this. The interviewers, after they ask their very first question, tell me about yourself, they're going to make their initial determination of whether they're going to hire you in 90 seconds or less. The average person raised their hand and said, enough. At 51 seconds for Patrick, we found the sweet spot, the ideal answer to tell me about yourself, you ready for this, was 45 seconds. 45 seconds. Wait, what? 45 seconds was enough. Tell me about yourself. Most people get caught in believing you want to know everything about me. They don't. Not yet. But I will tell you this. You nail your first interview, they're going to want to know more about you. That's when they want to know more. But right now, all it is a hook. It's just enough for them to be interested. We found education makes sense, but not for everyone. We found a relevant experience caused me as an interview suddenly to already see you possibly doing this job. A relevant experience, you've already done something that's similar to this job. I already can see it. And the key characteristic we liked for a number of reasons, but guess which key characteristic we're looking for? One that you're just so proud of that you've done, or one that is true about you but would be critical for the job you're applying for. Right? I was working with the vice president of a $150 billion company, and I had pre-interviewed him and video recorded it. And he shared a key characteristic about himself. I want to tell you a key characteristic about myself. This is a senior executive, and he said, I'm really organized. Now, is that a bad trait, being organized? What do you think? It's not a bad trait, but is there one about you that when they hear it, they go, huh, that's funny. We really need that for this role. And he kind of hit his forehead, and he's like, you know what? One of the things that they keep ranting about for this new role is negotiation. And I'm really good at negotiation. And I go, what do you think the impact might be if you shared that as a key characteristic, a true one, and one that you can share that might be relevant to the role anyway? This isn't rocket science, is it? And I laughed, and I'll tell you why, because most people think if I just share a good one, that's good enough. And I want you to know, be thinking about what is always the aim. How do I always have the target in mind of what I'm aiming at? And so we would ask it as a question. It's simply called a frame up. And I want to give you an example of what this can sound like. How many would like that? Now, for those who are on a call on a Monday evening because you say, I want a master's degree level tip, I'm going to share one with you, but it's not for the faint of heart, because you're going to hear it when you see Jennifer speak it here in a moment. And it's this. We like a key characteristic because we found it led us into the very first question you will ask in your interview. After this one, the very next question. And it's simply this. We like the key characteristic. This VP said this, and a key characteristic about me is that I'm a very strong negotiator. It's something I've been passionate about, and I use it every day in my career. I feel that negotiation is critical for anyone who's in an executive role. Now I want you to hear this frame up. He said, now that's one key characteristic about me, but I imagine there are probably 3 or 4 that you're looking for in the candidates you're interviewing. What do you suppose those might be? Now, they took this and rolled it into their first question, which happens to be, this is a sidebar. For those of you who've read the book or are looking for those advanced tips, you'll know that, did you know there are 2 primary questions, the 2 most commonly asked questions in an interview? In other words, a candidate asks, when they say, hey, you got any questions for me? When an interviewer says, what questions do you have for me? Did you know there are 2 that are the most common? The first one, I bet you can all guess. Can you tell me what next steps are? Where do we go from here? Right? That's the number 1 most common, but the second most common candidate question surprises people. And it's this. Can you tell me what you're looking for in candidates for this position? Wait, what? That's the second most common. What were you looking for? Was there anything you were hoping to see that I haven't showed yet? It was all kind of derivatives of the same question, which is basically, what are you looking for? Now, by the way, that's at the end of the interview. You got 3 minutes left, and you ask, what were you looking for? And when they ask it that late in an interview, can you guess what happens? You have one of two options. There's only 2 minutes, 3 minutes left in the interview. And they go, well, I was really hoping for project management skills, fiscal responsibility, and the ability to manage large groups. That's what I was really hoping for. If the candidate has that, they go like this. Well, it's really funny that you say that because I'm a really good project manager. I've got great fiscal responsibility and I lead large projects all the time. It's too much, too late. It looks like a last ditch effort. Or they do this. Oh. And they don't say anything and they've missed it. They missed it because they didn't share any of that throughout. And so we found this is the master's degree level for those who are ready for really strong. Is the frame up is a good advanced strategy. The master's degree level is rolling it into your question. So let me give you an example of what it sounds like. Let me share my screen. I'm going to share a video with you so that you have a chance to see what it can sound like. This is Jennifer. You'll hear her reference Kroger. She was interviewing with Kroger Company and practicing and prepping for her interviews. And it sounded something like this. Hey, Jennifer, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I can share some about my education, some key experiences that I've had, as well as an attribute that I might bring to the company. Does that sound all right for you?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. So I attended the Indiana University in Bloomington. It was a great 4 years. I was very fortunate to go through the business school, Kelly School of Business. It's one of the best in the country. So that prepared me for a very challenging district manager role at Aldi.
Everybody can hear that.
Standards, image, and developing the personnel. So with that, I feel like a key attribute that I can bring to Kroger is maintaining that team environment, developing the personnel, and helping the team success. So that's one key attribute that I'm sure I can bring to the table. Before I do that myself.
All right.
Hey, Matt,
So,
not to interrupt, but people are having trouble hearing the audio. So
okay, gotcha. Got it. We'll try to raise that volume. I have the volume all the way up, so please make sure yours is up as well. With that, by the way, bottom line is Jennifer says, absolutely. Why don't I tell you a little bit about my education, a relevant experience, and a key characteristic. How's that sound to you? That sounds great, great. So I graduated from Bowling Green State University with a degree in interpersonal and public communication and a minor in psychology. I then went on to have the experience, a relevant experience to this role in consulting with large corporations around leadership capacity. And I think one key characteristic about me is the ability to lead large groups around key factors. Now, that's just one key characteristic about me, but I imagine there are 3 or 4 you're looking for in candidates for this role. What do you suppose those might be? So it leads into, now again, the second part of that's a master's degree part, but I want you to know when you go into your interview and the question is asked, tell me about yourself, always, always frame it up. By the way, the interviewers told us afterwards, the candidate looked so much more confident when they knew where they were going and then went exactly there. So if there are 3 key elements, guess how long you're talking on each one? About 15 seconds. 15 seconds, that's it? Yes. 45 seconds in total from beginning to end, and ends up being total under 1 minute. It's quick, it's easy, and it looks so much more confident. I hope that was helpful. You gotta frame it up. The second one, I mentioned I was gonna come back to it, which is give, not get. Give, not get. And I want you to know that we have one of the most commonly asked questions is this: why do you want this job? Why did you interview here? Why do you want this position? They're all derivatives of the same question. Why do you want to work here? What do you suppose we most frequently hear? And what we hear is this: people forget that, in fact, I do an exercise in the classroom where I'll have markers. And I'll ask someone to come up to the front of the room and I'll say, take a marker if what you hear is more about me than it is you. It's more about me. And so people, good-hearted people will say this, why do I want this job? Because it's got incredible benefits. Why do I want this job? Because you have a great organization, a strong reputation. Why do I want this job? I want this job because it can really help me build my skill set. Why do I want this job? It'll help build my resume. Now, if you listen carefully, you'll start to notice a common theme, which is this. Guess who they're all about? That's right. They're all about the candidate. And the question is, how do I make sure I'm giving, not getting? Let me give you an example. I'm going to play another video. Hopefully these you'll be able to hear a little clearer. Let me give you an example of what this frequently sounds like. Why do you want this position? This is a dear friend of mine, by the way, who, if you heard her now interview, it'd scare you because she's so dang good. It's a joke. But I asked this question, why do you want this job? Notice if you can tell who it's all about.
I've been with the company for a while, and I'm always looking to grow my career. So I feel like I've been in this role for several years now, and looking to just kind of broaden my horizons, learn new things, meet new people, and take the skills that I've learned and continue to build on those.
All right, so I want to take the skills I've learned, I want to continue to build on them. Who is this all about? That's right, it's about the candidate. And I want you to know, interviewers can snip this out in about 3 seconds. So the question becomes, what are you bringing of value to the organization? What are you wanting to contribute to the organization? Why do you want this position? And I want to just give you a couple of examples of what people have shared when they realized, wait a minute, what do I want to contribute? For example, I had someone recently say this, Matt, I want to step in and really hit the ground running. I go, what would you like? Let me frame it in a different way. Hildy, imagine someone asking you, what would you like in 1 year from now people to say about you that you've done on this job? Like after they hired you 1 year later, what would you like to walk by a conference room and overhear them saying, thank God we hired Hildy. Why? And then what are the 4 or 5 things you'd love for them to say? And they started to say things like this, that they hit the ground running, that they really helped unite people, that they came in with great ideas and strategies we could implement quickly. And I share that with you because once they began to realize what they want to give, not get, they were able to articulate it in an interview. You've got to give, not get. What could that sound like? Hopefully the audio on this one was a little bit low. Let's see if it still works. If not, make sure your volume's all the way up. But why do you want this position, Jennifer?
Well, Kroger has a great reputation in the Cincinnati market. I feel like my grocery experience can help you guys change any processes that might need improvement. I think that I can help increase your sales with the experience that I have, build promotions, as well as develop the team. I have a lot of leadership experience, so helping your people become the best that they can be. I think that those things would be a way that I can help your team become successful.
All right. So once again, what can I bring to the table? Hopefully that audio was a little bit better. But want you to know the question becomes, I really feel, she was saying, I really feel like my experience can help you build promotions, can really help build sales for the team. These are all about what I can do for you versus what can I get. I even had one person go, Matt, they asked me why I want this job. That's why I want it. I want to build my resume. I want to gain some experience that'll help me grow. Do you hear what that says to someone? Especially when someone says, I really feel like this job will help me build my resume. You realize that communicates, don't you? That you don't want to be in this job. You're waiting for the next one. You're just anxious to get on to the next role. They don't really want to be here. That's how we have a lot of people being told this. You'll notice that a lot of companies, very few, there are a couple of exceptions, but very few will ever say this. We didn't hire you because we just really felt like it was more about you than us. They won't say that. We have a lot of people that get this feedback. You were one of our top 2 or 3. We just felt like someone else was a little more applicable for the job. We felt like maybe you were a little overqualified for the job. Overqualified? Yeah, we think you want the next job, not this one. And so, by the way, you'll never get the next one because you didn't get this one, right? You hear that? We go, oh man, people miss these things all the time. So I want to share that with you so that you know that that is a trip point and wouldn't want that to happen for you. In fact, I just noticed a chat that came up. So Natalie, I'm going to try to manage this one. Is there value in positioning a win-win solution? For example, here's what I offer and here's where I would be happy and fulfilled, etc. in this role? Yeah, absolutely. Great question. It can be a win-win, but I want you to know the more you make it about you, the less they will embrace it. The more I make it about me, the less they're willing to embrace it. The more I'm able to help them see the value I can bring to the organization, what I'm looking to help provide them with and service them with, game over. In the interviews, we have interviewers who have told us that answer alone caused me to say, I have to hire Nancy. She's so good. Like that it really impressed us. She clearly wants to be here and help us. We went, exactly. So do so many other candidates, but they didn't know that this was a trick question. Trick question. And so with that, let me share one last strategy with you, and then I'm going to open the floor, Natalie, so that folks can ask questions. And
Okay.
And so I'm going to share one last quick tip with you, and that is this. We know that the end of the interview is critical. I promise you, I tell you what we call the bookends of the interview. One of those is frame it up. That comes right up front. You also know how they close every interview. Almost without exception, unless they were really underimpressed, almost without exception, the interviewer says this: I've asked you a lot of questions. What questions do you have for me? Now, I will tell you, there is something we call the death rattle in an interview. When this is spoken, we can predict at a 98% accuracy level, you will not get the job. When a candidate said this, well, Matt, thank you for interviewing. We've asked you a lot of questions. Do you have any questions for me? Well, thank you, Susan. I really appreciate that. No, I think you've done such a good job. You've answered all my questions. And we can hear a gong in the background. When we were doing all this research, we knew 98% accuracy level, they're not going to hire this individual. Why? Why? Just because they didn't have a question? No, because it spoke volumes to them. Interviewer after interviewer told us, I don't think they really want this job. I don't think they're interested. I don't think they really care. We went, wait, no, they're driving home right now to tell a loved one, I hope I get this job. Well, that's a shame, because the truth is there's no way we're hiring this person. It indicated such low interest. You must have prepared interview questions. I will tell you this surprises a lot of people. We found the sweet spot was about 3 questions. We had some candidates go, nope, you know what? I remember in the late 80s, early 90s, they said, you interview them. And that sounds good. Don't get me wrong. You're okay to ask questions. But the truth is, when an interviewer felt like they were being drilled by 12 questions, it sent a message. This is what they say. The only indication we have of how you will be tomorrow when we hire you is how you are in the interview now. So if they're going to drill me with questions, that's what they're going to do tomorrow when I hire them. And so I want you to know, especially in your early interviews, I will tell you, advanced interviewers, those who are really good at interviewing, can walk in and nail their job interview. They know a secret about questions in an interview, and it's this: junior level interviewees, candidates, will ask questions to get information. But advanced level interviewers will ask questions to give information. Now, we teach a strategy in the book called front loading. And unless you've ever, for many of you on this Zoom right now, you've interviewed people before. You've interviewed others. You've been on the other side of the table. And I don't know if you've ever seen this, but we saw it 1,000 times where someone would run a 26.1 mile marathon. They did fine in the interview and they tripped right at the finish line because of the question and answering session. They tripped at the end of the interview. So you've got to prep, and there's a couple of strategies. We provide 2 advanced strategies at the end of the book. I won't go into one of them. One of them is called front loading. It basically means this: share some of those stats that you put on your resume at the front end of your question and then ask your question. It's called front loading. So one person says this: can you tell me how many stores I will manage as a regional manager? That's not a bad question. And they go, okay, you'll manage 12. But an advanced interviewer will ask what we call a front-loaded question, and they'll say this: I've had the good fortune over the last 4 years of overseeing 7 stores in a tri-state region, managing over 120 employees. Can you tell me how many stores I'll be responsible for in this position as a regional manager? And they go, wow. Like, you've shared information up front and then ask your question. It's designed to give information, not to get. And that wows interviewers like you wouldn't believe. In fact, Natalie, you probably have heard me say this before. One of my favorite things, because people ask me all the time, do you ever work one-on-one? And the answer is yes. I have a lot of people who will hire me to work with them one-on-one. We do a whole video interview in advance, and then we'll work with them and teach all 10 advanced strategies. And then we'll post interview them so they have a before and after. And y'all, same person in 24 hours, you should see the interview. It is insane. It's so much fun. And why do I tell you that? Because this is such a simple technique. It's called front loading. It's really easy. And it leads you, just a couple of those is all you need. And it'll lead you to your final question. We call it the closing question. You always want one question to close out your entire interview. We have a lot of people who have left interviews and go, I don't even know how I did. I'm not sure how it went. But I want you to know we found that there was one question you could ask. In fact, in the entire book, it's the only question, the only thing in the entire book we say, ask it exactly as we have written. Not because, we want it, a specific way. It's because when they don't, people screw it up. They screw up the question. The technique is called most and might. This is for the last question you ask in an interview. They say, all right, so Hildy, do you have any questions? And Hildy says, yes, I have 3. And she asks a couple, and then she says, the final question I have, the last question I have is this. And we call it this, the technique is called most and might. Most and might. And it's really simple because we had to ask ourselves, what if you could close the interview on a very high positive note and it's not even in your words, it's in theirs? What if your next interviewer ended the interview talking about the 3 or 4 things they love most about you, and that's how the interview ends? Now, the reason why I tell you this is we found it was profound. We videoed, most of you know that we did tons of video. I literally have over thousands of videos of live interviews. And what we found was this. The last question, most and might, sounded like this. Hildy, what gives you the most confidence that I might be applicable for this role? What gives you the most confidence that I might be applicable for this role? I want you to know in the interview, many of you know that in the book we talk about the triumphant twins. There are 2 things that when a candidate brings these to an interview, the interviewers told us, we don't even know how to express it. All we know is I must hire this individual. I have to hire Alice. She's so good. We said, why? They brought 2 things, total confidence with total humility. We went, wait, what? Total confidence. They were confident in who they were, but they were humble in their approach. This question is not a cocky question. Hey, what gives you the most confidence that I'm the best candidate? That is not the question. The question is a humble question. And this is after you've nailed your whole interview. And the question is this. Natalie, we've had a chance to talk today and I've really enjoyed our conversation. What gives you the most confidence that I might be applicable for this role? The word might was critical. If you ask me what gives you the most confidence you're the best candidate they've ever seen in 20 years, they're not going to answer that question. They're going to say, we got 3 more people to interview. We don't know. But if you ask me what gives me the most confidence that you might be applicable, and you've crushed your interview, you've destroyed it, you've nailed it all the way through, I will tell you, this is the one question. Natalie, you can probably be testimony of this. I have a lot of people who've said, Matt, going into the interview, my heart was like this. Now, I will tell you, I framed it up. They said, tell me about yourself. And I said, oh, okay. Why don't I tell you a little bit about my education, relevant experience, and a key characteristic. How's that sound to you? And they went, that sounds great. And I went, wow, this really works. Right? Like, that was weird. And I finish it. I actually do it. I did it in 45 seconds and they're smiling still and their eyes haven't glazed over. Now, there are many other strategies. They were asking me, why do you want this position? And I was sharing with them the value I would bring, not what I would get. I was giving, not getting. And then I was doing some of the other elements as well. Like, we teach something called alignment. Alignment on, what would you do in the first 90 days? Or short, long, short, which is all about, my long-term and short-term goals, or strengths and weaknesses. There's a strategy around it. Who'd have known? Recent and relevant. Or we even teach about failure as learning, and you'll learn that in the interview. Hypothetically speaking, and then the ability to do what we call most and least in the interview. Most and least. And when you learn each of these strategies, and you're able to leverage them in the interview, when you get to the last question of most and might, something happens. Most of them said this. I got to the very end. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm not sure I can do it. Okay, I'm going to do it. What gives you the most confidence that I might be applicable for this position? And they answered it. They actually did it. I will tell you this. You do it once, you'll never not do it again. Here's why. I will tell you, they suddenly said this. Well, I think there are 3 reasons why we feel like you might be most applicable, Anna. I really think that you bring that communication ability that's critical in this particular role. And I think your project management skill set's really strong, and it's something we're going to need every day. And I think the 3rd thing that I really liked was your ability to work with people at all levels of an organization. I think that's what impressed us. I think those things might make you applicable for this role. People are always shocked when they hear them. I will tell you, you have the permission to say 2 words and 2 words only when they do this. You have permission once they do this. Remember, this is the closing question. You want to end the interview on a high note in their words. And you have permission when they do to say only 2 words and 2 words only, and that is, thank you. Stop. Do not keep going. I'm glad you like my project management skills because I've been working really hard on that. Do not do that. You'll oversell it. Now, I will tell you, I'm going to close on this and then I'll open the floor for questions. I will tell you this. There was another primary reason why we loved this. Remember, we interview and video record a lot. So we'd be in a room full of like 3 interviewers interviewing a candidate, and they went, what gives you the most confidence that I might be applicable for this role? And one person said, I think it's your project management skills. And Betty sitting on the other side said, and I think for me, your communication ability. And Mark sitting in the middle said, for me, I think also your ability to communicate at all levels is really strong. And that candidate said, thank you. And they went, wow, well, I got to tell you, I can't thank you enough. You've nailed all the other elements. And they go, wow, I can't thank you enough. They shake your hand. Guess what they tell you next? Let me tell you where we go from here. You've nailed your interview. We're going to tell you where we're going. We want you to know. You don't have to ask it. That's such a junior level question. It's not a bad question. It's just junior level. They're going to tell you. If you nail the interview, they're going to tell you what's happening next because they want you. They want you to be hired by the organization. But they shake your hand. They say, thank you so much. You walk out the door, and we kept the video camera running. And Natalie, what happened next blew our minds. Time after time after time, that candidate would walk out the door, and the interviewer, either by themselves, would call someone, or if there's a panel interview, they would turn to each other and ask a question of themselves. What'd you think? And with the video running, guess what we heard? The first 3 things out of their mouth was the very thing they closed your interview with. So Sally walks out of the room, and the panel of the interviewers say this, what'd you think? And they go, I got to be honest with you. Holy smokes, she was so good. I think her project management skills could really make a difference. Next person said, yeah, but I agree with you. And her ability to communicate at various levels like she did, that's going to be a game changer in this role. And the other person said, yeah, I know. And, I think also some of these other elements, they would speak the very things they just spoke in the interview. So not only did it close on a high note, it's what they remembered most when you walked out the door. This was true of the panel. This was true when they walked out the door, and Mark picked up the phone and called his boss and said, hey, Elizabeth, I just met with Anna. Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, really strong project management. Really great ability to communicate at all levels. She might be the one. They kept saying it over and over. So I just want to share with you the power of that. It's the only one we say word for word. What gives you the most confidence that I might be applicable? Somebody say, can I say suitable? Suitable's fine. But applicable, suitable can lead to something different. It's not bad. Suitable can lead to more of, do we think cultural? That's not a bad thing either. But right now, are you applicable? Are you applicable for the role? Here's what we found over and over. It drove us absolutely insane. It's actually what led me, Natalie, to write the book. I know you've heard my personal story over and over. And that is the whole book was written for one sentence that I heard 1,000 times. I've had the great blessing of working with many leaders and various organizations. And I got to tell you, we heard over and over and over again, good, strong, applicable candidates. We'd say, are you going to hire Philip? And they said, no, we're going to hire Mary. Really? Philip is so much more, he's got more experience, and he seems better on paper. And they said, yeah, I know, but we're hiring Mary. She was just so much of a better fit. She's just a better fit for our company. And I want you to know that drove us to write this book. We're like, wait a minute, what causes people to say, man, they just feel like the right fit? And these keys were critical. And I know there's going to be questions. Natalie, I'm going to let you monitor it, if you will.
Okay.
And that is, what are some of the questions that you might have? Let me just open the floor for any questions you might have, and we'll go from there. So we have a lot of people who are asking about Zoom too, and I'll mention that as well.
Okay. Great, Matt. You need a drink of water?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay, I was going to say, thank you. Talk about, you exude one of the things we hear about the most on Zoom interviews when people are doing that is energy.
Mhm.
It's critical, is the energy that people bring to an interview. Someone asked earlier, does that nonverbal communication count? I think it's huge, even in the video setting. So
yeah, nonverbal, if you recall,
yes,
is
very
55%
much.
of your communication. And vocal variety, most people think that's vocal tone. It's not. It's pausing. It's speeding up. It's volume. It's how you use your voice. Even some of you have something we call, in all the videos, we call it a vocal growl. It's when somebody says, man, that's so important to me. That's called a vocal growl. Man, like that. If you've ever seen people do that emphasis. But I will tell you, it's best when you're just being you. Just be the best version of you. And you know what we found, Natalie?
What?
Where did people exude less energy? When they were being themselves? Or when they zipped up an interview suit because they thought it was supposed to sound a certain way? Yeah, it's why we tell people all the time. In the seminars that I do, people tell me all the time they heard something they weren't expecting, which is this: don't try to be someone else. Don't zip up an interview suit because I want to put on my best interview face, so I'm going to do that. Don't do that. It feels so inauthentic, and it actually loses energy. Be who you are. And I got good news. In fact, I'm working with a candidate now that called me and said, hey, can I work with you? But I need you to know, I don't want you to tell me to just be confident because I'm an introvert. I said, I got good news for you. I was teaching them all these advanced strategies around showing, being authentically who you are. You do not have to change who you are. In fact, it's almost the opposite that happens. People try to be something they're not is when they fail. Like you're the best you I've ever met. Some of you get that after the call is over. But it's true, you're the best you I've ever met. So don't try to be someone else, be you. But I do encourage, don't forget your vocal variety, all of that plays a key role. Just speak who you are. Natalie, you could probably attest to this too. I had a client of mine recently. I was doing one-on-one executive coaching. Then I did a Zoom seminar. Then I did a face-to-face seminar. And then they were with me when I was doing a small group leadership, and they said this: that really is you. And I go, what do you mean? And they're like, I thought that was something you did for Zoom. I go, what are you talking about? They said, no, I thought that energy was just something you did for a leadership seminar. I go, you know what? It's too exhausting to be someone you're not. Some of you know what I mean. It's exhausting. We call it white knuckling. It's like you got to be someone you're not. That's exhausting. Don't do that. Just be the best version of who you are. Thank you for asking.
Matt, we do have a couple of questions. So,
yeah.
Jeff Kuhn. Jeff, can you go ahead and ask your question?
Thanks, Jeff.
Give him a second to unmute.
Sure.
See if he's still out there. Maybe not, but let's ask it anyway. Is the most and might question to be used on the screening interview and subsequent interviews?
Great question. The most and might question is not primarily for the screening interview. It's primarily for the interview, whether it be through Zoom or face-to-face. And I will tell you, some of the Zoom techniques are so simple, Jeff, it's a joke, but most people don't know them. So I will tell you this. For example, if you do a Zoom interview, did you know that most people don't realize that making eye contact is actually at the camera right there? But most look down at the candidates. So if I'm a candidate, they'll look down. So imagine me talking to you like this for the next 45 minutes. And I'm just staring, looking at you as opposed to putting my head toward the camera. When you're on a Zoom interview, you must look straight into the camera. Does that mean I can never peek down? You can, but be careful. It's a trap. Most people go, well, I want to see their facial expression. You can do that. But I want you to know you must spend 80+% looking right at that little green dot. For most of your computers, it's a little green dot, right in the middle on the top of your computer. Just so you know, in the future, that camera will be placed in the middle of the screen on your computer because it's become such a challenge. And I will tell you, people have lost interviews because of it. Why? Okay. They get so caught up. I'm going to use this resume. They sometimes reference when they're on Zoom. They think, hey, you can't see what I'm doing, so I'm just going to reference my resume. And they'll start to look at it. And when they do, they get so caught up in their content that they miss their intent. Let me say that again. They got so caught up in their content of what they're saying that they miss their intent of staying connected and focused on you. And I will tell you, the difference is tremendous. If you've ever been on the other side of an interview, when people can do it, when they can look you square in the eye, notice that your eye is the camera, not down on the screen where I see your face. It's up in the camera. When they do it, it's game over. Already you get 10 extra bonus points. But
Thanks,
some
Natalie. Thanks, Matt. I couldn't find my mute button with all these different faces. I was in the wrong.
That's okay, Jeff. Good.
It's such a
Good.
great one.
Yeah. Steve Carter had a question. Steve, are you out there? Not sure, but
Yeah.
I can speak. There you are. Go ahead.
So my question is, it sounds like the key to this is actually doing practice or mock interviews so that you're not nervous or you're able to follow the steps. Is that true?
It is true with everything. But I will tell you, Stephen, just as in life, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And the reason why I tell you that is we have a lot of candidates that will practice, but they're not practicing the eye contact, the intent, the vocal variety. They do a lot of their practice by themselves. And if you can work with Natalie and her team and have a coach that's sitting there with you listening, critical.
Matt, that's a good point. And Steve, just to remind you, we have 8 volunteer coaches on our team that you can set up and do practice and mock interviews with. You don't have to have like a real upcoming interview coming up. If you just have like a job description for a job you might be interested in your resume, you can send it to one of our coaches and they'll sit down and practice with you so you can start preparing. Also wanted to remind everybody that we have a partnership with Strategic HR right now. So if you go out to our website under tools, you can just do this, or you can just send an email to interview@strategicHRinc.com, and you can do a video interview with Strategic HR, and they will then give you feedback. So keep those things in mind. Let's see. I'm just trying to see if everyone else was just thanking you, Matt, or if there were any other.
And while you're doing that, Natalie, if you don't mind, I'll share with the participants also that I'll let you keep reading those if you need to do that. But I just wanted to let you know that we're going to be doing another seminar coming up. This one's going to be a comprehensive seminar. We're going to do it in a couple different sessions. We typically charge $99 for it, but I want you to know tonight, if you email me at matthewgmarvin@gmail.com, MATTHEW, middle initial G, Marvin, MARV as in Victor, IN, @gmail.com, matthewgmarvin@gmail.com. If you email me and let me know that you'd be interested, we'll be using a code called library in honor of Natalie and her organization. And that code will be it'll take it from $99 to $49 for those who are on the call right now. So we just wanted to do something, if that's okay, Natalie, for your participant.
Sure.
And we'll be sending something, a flyer in the mail. So if that's something you'd be interested in, we have a blast. We'll take the practice to a whole new level. Because, Jeff, your question was such a great one about what about screen interviews, right? And I want you to know, did you know that the screen interview, we call it the sanity check? Sanity check. If you know, I spent years in recruiting. I do a lot of interfacing with HR people, interviewers, recruiters who do this all day long. And one of the mistakes that sometimes candidates make is they think a screening interview, as long as it's screening, in other words, they haven't interviewed you yet, they're just calling to say, hey, Susan, we're interested in talking with you. Do you have just a few moments? Sure, what's up? That is not a full-fledged interview. Your intent isn't to be on the call with them for an hour. Most of the people who do the screening interview, did you know, are not the actual interviewers? They're just this is what the recruiters and HR people will say this. It's just to see if this person is sane. Like, do they sound like a normal person when I talk to them? And So I don't need to hear every story. I'm just checking for quick sound bites. Do they sound clear? Do they sound articulate? Not the time you want to ramble on. Have you ever been in an interview where you had a conversation with yourself while you're speaking? You're saying this to yourself, shut up, stop talking. But for some reason, it just keeps coming. I just want you to know that this is, especially in a screen interview, these are designed to be just nice touch bases. Clear, brief, concise. Hope that helps. Jen.
Good. Matt, multiple people are wanting to know when your next seminar actually is.
Yeah.
They want me to post the information about it. So
Excellent.
maybe if you shoot me an email next to the recording, we can put a link to your website or to a PDF wherever you have it.
Will do. Happy to. I'll make sure I send it out so that you guys have a chance to access to it.
Okay, good. And we can always send it to everyone who's attended today so that everyone has it. So just let's see, I think we have time. One more question. Sherry says, for those of us who have been in the career world a while, don't want to draw attention to our age and have a lot of job history, should we come up with a different frame it up point? I'm assuming as opposed to maybe education or something.
Yes, yeah, great question. And I've seen people come up with many. The short answer to it is yes. If education is not the one you want to highlight, then change it, then shift it. What to? I've had some people say, you know, in addition to the relevant experience, which is a good one, especially if it's only one. This is a trip point because remember, it's the frame up. And so it's 45 seconds or less. And where people get caught is they go, in fact, you know, why don't I tell you 12 relevant experiences? They don't want that yet. Remember, this is just a touch point on, tell me a little bit about yourself. I've had people incorporate elements of a promotion. Why don't I tell you about a time I was promoted? Seen that. A relevant experience and a key characteristic. How's that sound to you? I've seen some only do 2 in their frame up, where they do a relevant experience and a key characteristic. I've seen multiple things. So that's the reason why, if you recall, I was telling Natalie, man, I always get a little bit shy when it comes to sharing an example, because some people go, well, that's my only option. I go, no. You can make those 3 bullets. We found 3 was ideal, but you can make those 3 points anything you want. It can be a key statistical accomplishment. I saved an organization $1.2 million over the course of 2.5 years through a work that I was doing. A relevant experience to this role is when I was managing 37 people as the regional director. And a key characteristic is, and then move on to those.
Okay. Anna Hamilton asks, how do you change up? And I think she means the final question. Anna, you can clarify if you're out there.
Yes,
if you
Natalie.
have, go ahead, Anna.
Hey, Anna.
I had an experience where I had multiple interviews for a position and with the CHRO a couple of different times. So how can you change up that final interview question with the different groups when it's multiple experiences with the same team or a similar team?
Here's what we found about that question, and it's going to surprise you. First of all, Anna, have you ever interviewed other people?
Yes, I have.
Okay, good. Have you ever interviewed other people and you don't remember what you said or they said? Like, I couldn't say it word for word. I don't know what questions they asked. I don't know that I could speak it 1 month later or even a week later. We've got so much going on in our lives. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay, the reason why I say that is because this question, we found minor shifts, but it doesn't need to change on the last question. In other words, we found this. What gives you the most confidence that I might be applicable for this position? And they go, well, you know, blah, 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 blah. Feels, by the way, this is designed to be a genuine, authentic question. This is not competent, cocky. Hey, what gives you the confidence? This isn't one you're just asking. By the way, when they answer, do not write. Let me say that again. When you ask this question and they say, well, I think the first one's project management. If you are a note taker, do not write. Don't write right now. We're just having dialogue. We're just talking, you and me. Does that make sense? On this one, you don't write. Just let them share. It feels much more interactive and conversational, which is what you want on that last question. But if I interview Betsy again, if she's interviewing me again, do I ask the question? We found the answer is yes. She doesn't remember you actually asked it the first time. She's not going to remember that. Now, I have heard people say this: what continues to give you the most confidence that I might be applicable for this position? Now, I have seen them add that word in. What continues? I've even heard someone say this: what is new for you that gives you the most confidence that I might be applicable for this position? So if they're interviewing for the third time, fourth time, I have seen them add small tidbits, but they keep the question the same, and I'll tell you why. Anna, if you have an interview coming up, I don't know if you do or not. If you do, once you ask it, you'll never not ask it again. It's such a much more positive and refreshing close to the interview. And they remember that. What they remember this, there's an old adage that Miriam Williamson used to say this: they'll never remember what you said. They won't even remember what you did, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. You ever heard that expression before? There's something about this question. It's why we say, I don't care if you take notes throughout, never take notes on this one. This is just you and I chatting. That's why it's a humble question. And I've really enjoyed our conversation today. And I thank you for the dialogue we've had. What do you suppose gives you the most confidence that I might be applicable for this role? It's just conversation. And when people start to take notes, it feels too formal. So it's conversational. And I hope that helps. But I can't wait if you specifically or anyone who uses that question. I know for me, Natalie, for the candidates that I've interfaced with through your organization, as well as the ones I do privately, there's not two of all the book, of everything we teach, there are two we hear the most positive feedback on. It's frame it up, key number one, and guess what? Most and might, key number 10, that closing question. By far, people were like, you're not going to believe it. I was so nervous to ask. And when I did, it went well. And later, they even referenced it. So it's just profound. What if I interview 5 people, like in a row? Should I ask all 5? Yes. They won't remember. They're not going to run in the next door and go, did they ask you this question? They're not going to do that. They won't even remember you asked it. But it feels so conversational that it's profound. I hope that helps.
I think so. Pam Farwick had a question for you too, Matt. Pam, can you unmute? Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Pam.
Hey, I am an environmental health and safety leader, and some of the interviews I've been on takes me on a plant tour.
Yes.
And as a safety person, knowing slips, trips, and falls are the most common for accidents, is it an okay question to ask about a process of a machine because there is a slip hazard on the floor, like water overflowing onto the floor, and if there's a drain to drain it out? So it'd be solving a problem for them.
Okay. Pam, by the way, awesome question, right? Which is this, and it actually applies to everyone on the call. Because many of you will be walking through the office. First of all, you already know the answer. If you're walking through a plant or having lunch, or an assistant is walking you through to the next office, are you interviewing? Survey says yes. You are always interviewing. Candidates I work with, they know, when does your interview start? They say 10 o'clock. I go, no. The interview starts when you get out of your vehicle. Like the moment you get out of your vehicle, you are interviewing. Why am I telling you that? Pam, one of the things that we noticed is a good question can be helpful, but pointing out where they're missing it can create an experience for them they don't like. So let me give you an example. I see a machine and there's a trip hazard. And I say, by the way, Pam, you got a trip hazard over there. Are you aware of it? They feel like they're being called on the carpet. Hey, look at that. She's smart. But the truth is, I'm not sure she's the right fit for us. Why? Because it felt embarrassing. Why? Because it called me out. Now, is it possible to say, have you ever had a trip hazard that you knew existed, but it just hasn't been fixed yet? Now, by the way, if they go like this, no, and it's obvious, just know that's good feedback for you, right? That might tell you about the organization themselves. But we have found, fair or unfair, if I call them on it, if I go, do you realize that walking through the manufacturing plant, you have 4 trip hazards already? In fact, one of them is illegal, according to the materials. I sure could help you with that. We want to know, did they go back to their office and go, hot dog, we got the right person? They actually feel called on it. Now, it was different though when they said, if you, if you had trip hazards or situations that were unsafe that you really feel could be resolved quickly, what would it mean to you to have someone who could step in and make that happen? And they go, oh, that'd be awesome. That's why we're hiring this position. But if I call them on the carpet, it almost never plays well. Almost always we find the candidates who do that, good or bad, it's not awful, but we found that the candidates often are told this, you were one of our top 3. But we just felt like someone else was a little more applicable. We felt like someone else was just a little bit better fit. Well done. We felt like they were a little better fit. Because remember, I'm creating a cultural experience for them as well, an interpersonal experience. And so I want to make sure they feel like they're being served, not being called on the carpet. I hope that helps. Does that make sense to you, Pam? Awesome. I hope that helps.
Okay, Matt, it's 8:28. I can't believe that already. So 2 hours goes by really fast with you. So we're thrilled to death you'd have you this evening. If you go ahead and shoot me that information, I can send it out to everyone who registered this evening tomorrow. So that'll be great, as well as people will be able to, I'll send you the recording. And I said that wrong. The recording will be posted on the Job Search Central site, so you'll be able to look at it there as well. And I'll just remind everybody real quick that tomorrow morning at 9:30, we have our elevator pitch power hour with Susanna Courtney. She's a business development representative for the Kentucky Career Center. So if you want to lock down how you talk about yourself when you meet people for the first time and let them know you're looking for a job, that's a class for you. And we have a LinkedIn class. The second class in the description is on our Job Search Central site under advanced classes. You can check that out tomorrow. And on Wednesday, Bill Kerrigan will be at the NKYAG meeting to talk about his flash mob fundamentals. And if you're really brand new and just getting started with Kenton County Public Library and our library programs, we have our Get Started, our orientation to people new to career transition at 1 o'clock on Wednesday with project coach Sherry Mays. And again, you can register for everything by going to kentonlibrary.org, scroll down, click on the Job Search Central link. All the classes are listed under either beginner job search classes or advanced job search classes. So thanks again to Matt for joining us this evening. We're always happy to have you. I know we have a lot of your books at the library, but I know tons of people are going to go out and buy it as well. It's like one of those books that everybody has to have in their personal collection to use for life. So
Natalie,
I hope you all have a good evening. Make sure to connect with Matt on LinkedIn too. He's a great guy that gives back. So thanks everybody. Have a good night. Thanks, Matt. Take
Sure
care.
appreciate it. All the best.
Thanks.
Here's to your success.